What's going on, everyone? This is Brian Turner here. We're here with another episode of the No Stress Midwest podcast. We're in season 5, our coaches edition. And today is going to be, we're joined by a very special guest. Not only is he someone that has known me since I was little guy, but he's also the first non-soccer person that we have on the podcast. This is, it's going to sound weird, but Chris Sheppard. I just call him Shep or Coach Shep. How's it going, man? How you doing today?
It's going well, Brian. Awesome.
Hey, yeah, I'm glad to have you
And
on.
I just normally just call you Turner, so.
Yeah, I think you can stick with Turner, and I'm going to stick with Shep. Let's not make things weird now.
Right.
So Shep is someone, I think I met him maybe 8th grade going into my freshman year. I just moved to New Jersey. Shep was our high school volleyball men and women's coach. Now, for a lot of people, especially here in the Midwest, men's volleyball is not a thing.
No.
East Coast, Texas, I know West Coast, it's huge. And Shep was one of the people that, like, I went to an open gym and he was just like, dude, you got to play volleyball. And for 4 years, I had every intention on playing volleyball. And every spring, I did something that either got in trouble, my mom wouldn't let me. I think one year I did tennis. So luckily, my senior year, I was like, Shep, like, I'm doing it. I'm coming out. And I was really bad. I had no hands. Couldn't really like approach the ball. And I remember it was like for 2 weeks, Shep made me like work on my approach going down and back in the gym. And he was like, you're not swinging until this looks good. And on top of a whole bunch of other lessons, Geyer and I were talking about this, the competitiveness that you have. Shep's one of the coaches that like taught me as a player, like, man, if your coach can do it, like, you have no reason not to do it. And Shep's not 6 foot, and he's stuff blocking. I think it was our center at the time, Wolfie. He was like 6'4". And I was just like, oh, crap. All right, this guy's legit. So you've had a huge, huge part in shaping me as a player, but then also as a coach, Shep. You've done like a really good job as far as showing me like what's a coach that I would respect? What were some of the qualities that you had? And I try to do that. So there's that intro.
Yeah, right. And I know we want to get into a conversation, but what we as the coaches really enjoyed about you as a player in that particular year is, and if any players end up watching any of these podcasts, just the amount of questions that you asked, like you were. While you came into it late, you were definitely invested and really wanted to know the whys of what we were doing, so that you would do it correctly, And as coaches, I feel like my staff, the girls' staff and the guys' staff, was always pretty good in not just I need you here because Coach Sheppard says you're supposed to be here. We would try to give you the reason and the rationale, and you as a player that particular year, like I said, were really invested and asked a lot of questions so that there was a reason and an understanding that would kind of tie in and make you a better player rather than just relying on your athleticism.
Yeah.
You're also trying to understand the game. And that, like I said, that, what was that, 2007, 2008? I mean, that stuck with me 14 years later about you as a player. So
right.
It's not at all surprising to me that you are now having the success that you're having because you had that mindset as a player that many years ago. So,
well,
kudos to you.
Thank you, man. And I was telling Geyer yesterday, it's always like, no matter what, you two are always going to be coaches. So it always feels good to kind of hear that stuff. I think from any player, you want to know that your coach thinks you're doing a good job, right? I think that's just as simple as it gets. So I appreciate that. But enough of that stuff, right, Shep? Let's get into you as a coach, because there's a lot of things I think that you bring to the table, right? Like, you've been coaching for over 25 years at the high school level?
This is my 25th season. Yeah.
You're going into 25 years. You've amassed over 500 wins. You're 5 for 6, I think 5 for 6 in state finals. So only losing one, and I'm sure that's going to be one that's going to stick out more than the 5 that you won, just knowing
Right,
you.
sure.
Yeah, just knowing you. And then also, which was really cool, that they don't have this in Kansas or Missouri, and I'm sure in a lot of states they probably don't. Tournament of Champions, which is like, so let's say in Kansas, right? You have your 6A, your 5A, 4A down to 1A, right? All those state champions then come and play against each other to figure out who is the legit number 1 team in the state, right?
Right.
And you won it last year, which was the last year that you were telling me New Jersey is having a tournament of champions for
Yeah,
volleyball.
so not every sport in Jersey had a tournament of champions.
Okay.
But any sport that did have it, there's a new director of NJSA, which is the governing body of high school sports in Jersey.
Hmm.
There's a new director, and the new director has decided to terminate tournament of champions. And listen, I'm sure there was some research done somewheres, some survey
Allegedly, yeah.
somewhere said,
Yeah.
Kind of in the mindset of the world where basically the reasoning and the rationale given was basically that last week, because when the group champions, so what you guys are having Kansas, the 6A to 5A, Jersey, we have group 4, group 3, group 2. The group champions happen, that championship happens on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And then the tournament of champions stuff doesn't happen until the next weekend. You've only got 6 state champs. You've got 4 publics, group 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then a non-public A and a non-public B. So basically the larger non-publics and the smaller non-publics.
Right.
So
And those are your
a week
parochial
later would
schools
be
a lot,
the
right?
quarterfinals and semifinal. And then the Sunday would be the actual, the final. So anyhow, the rationale given for getting rid of tournament of champions is for 1 week of the season, the only kids in the state that were allowed to play volleyball were those 6 state champions. And by getting rid of that tournament of champions, we now extend a week of play where the whole state can still play volleyball or softball or basketball, whatever sport it was that had a tournament of champions. Which is really a crock, because
Participation
those teams, they
trophy.
could have played during that time period. Anybody in the state can play until the last day of the season,
Yeah.
but who is looking to play after they've been eliminated in state playoffs anyhow?
Right.
we're just getting together to have a meaningless game.
Yeah.
So on paper somewhere, somebody made themselves feel good about what they did, but they didn't do anything except rob the opportunity of there to be an actual state champion.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like whoever made those rules probably never won a state champion, nonetheless competed in a tournament of champion. And you don't have to say it. I don't want you to get in trouble, but I can say it and you can just nod.
Part of the other idea was when there were 6 group champions, there were at least 6 teams in the state that will now end their season on a win.
Mm-hmm.
And when there was tournament of champions, just one. And listen, last year, not only so we won 5 state championships. Not only was it the first time that we won tournament champions, it's the first time that we won a tournament champions game. The other 4 years that we won, we lost in our first tournament. Nobody came and took away my group championship.
Right. Right.
My kid, was it disappointing that we lost the tournament championship? Sure, but we understood the euphoria from the week before, and nobody came and took away our state championship, and we still got our rings. And also, the whole idea, again, this whole mentality that we're getting away from, or that we're getting to, where we don't want to ever have anybody lose and have upset feelings.
God forbid, right? God forbid you understand what it's like to lose and try to win again, right?
Oh, listen, losing in a couple of those tournament champions in previous years kind of helped shape this past year, and failure can be a motivator, and so we were fortunate to be undefeated at the time, so there was a motivation to, hey, let's go finish this thing undefeated. And,
and you went 37-0 that season. During that, you've got over 500 wins as a head coach. Although I haven't been back to Jersey, I saw you in April, which was like the first time in a while. But there's this video that keeps circulating. I don't think it was the Tournament of Champions, but it was one of the state champions where you started breakdancing in the middle of everyone, and that made its rounds on social media. I remember seeing that. So it's good to see you're still young. You can still move.
This particular year was I had broken my foot in the middle of the season, so I was not my moves weren't quite up to par at the end because I wasn't completely healed at the end of the season.
So now it's much better. You're saying
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, if we win it this year, right, or who knows what might happen during the course of the season. But
right,
today we're the state finals and we won it.
You're going all out.
Look out, right? Yeah.
Love it. I love it. Well, Shep, you've got quite a career here. Let's kind of take it back a few decades, right?
Sure.
Why did you get into coaching? What was the thing that flipped the switch for you?
All right, so I've told this story a lot of times, and I know we've got some time, so I'll try and shorten to a degree.
Teachers, we want you. Are you a licensed teacher in the Missouri or Kansas KC metro area looking to make a couple extra dollars tutoring over the weekday and weekends? Well, No Stress Midwest is the place for you. No Stress Midwest Education is looking for teachers to help in one-on-one tutoring, small group academic enrichment, and study hall. We are looking for teachers to work on average 2 to 3 nights a week, 2 hours a night in the subject of language arts, science, math, social studies, and foreign language. If you're interested, please visit nostressmidwest.com/education and fill out an application today. Cheers.
I mean, sports in itself was just something that once I started playing, and kids can pretty much start playing sports like out of the womb today. Yep. Where I lived, there wasn't a whole lot of sport opportunity, so it wasn't until I actually moved to Williamstown. So I started playing at like 7 or 8. So it's not like I didn't start till my late teens or something. Right. But I also didn't start at 4 or 5. I guess probably my first soccer and baseball season was probably like 8 years old. Okay. And from the time I started playing, I loved sports. And fast forward, I went to Trenton State College. I went on an academic scholarship, and I was going there, and I was going to be an accountant because when I'm pretty strong in math, and when we did accounting classes in school, I just loved it. And what it turned out to be was I really just loved the competitiveness of those classes in school, because once I started taking accounting classes full time at college, I was bored out of my mind. I could find something to do better than go to class all the time. And it usually was getting together with my buddies and going playing a home run derby, going playing some tennis, go to the gym and work out. So anyhow, after like 2 years, I decided to change my major, changed it to health and phys ed. And that took a little while to do because in my mind, I was an academic. I was on an academic scholarship. Right. I was an intelligent kid, and there's the stigma that goes along with health and phys ed. Actually, it goes a gym teacher. That wasn't what I was going to do. My father was in education, but after, like I said, a couple of years of college, and kind of that's the point of college, I realized this is what I want to do, and I want to get into that area, and I definitely want to get into coaching. So, my first year teaching, I got hired as a part-time teacher. So I didn't teach a full day. Our teachers taught 5 periods. I taught 3. So I was still like bartending, through the fall and the winter. And then in the spring, I decided I was done with bartending. I knew there were no openings for coaching jobs at our place, but I was at least going to volunteer. And soccer and baseball had been my primary sports. The guy that had been the varsity baseball coach when I was there, Coach Hunt, who is another reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. He was incredibly inspirational to me. He was now our freshman baseball coach. And so I went to him about volunteering with him. And Shep, I'd love to have you, but he's still a guy that volunteered with him when he was the varsity coach, was helping him at freshman. And he was like, not that I don't want another guy, but I've already got a guy. And so then I went to our JV coach, who Frank Turcasio used to go to Williamstown, and another kid was volunteering with him. And then the head coach was a new guy who was not from Williamstown, and he had 2 brothers that volunteered with him. So we were kind of filled at the volunteer. I wanted to give up my time. I wanted to do volunteer.
Right. And you couldn't do it.
Kind of shut down, man. So my athletic director, Roy Fenimore at the time, said, "Hey, if you thought about it, go ask Fred Powell, see if you can volunteer with softball." And again, the chauvinist me kind of gave him a sideward eye, like, girl sports. Like, I played guy sports. I never once thought about coaching girl sports. And when I was at Williamstown, our softball team wasn't all that good. So I'm like, all right, like I do want to volunteer. I want to be involved in, all right, it's not baseball, but all right, sure. So I go to Fred and Fred tells me, "Shep, I'd love to have you, but I got somebody at the varsity." I'm like, are you kidding me?
Can't buy
but
it.
like, listen, Karen Dillmore is our JV coach. We don't have a volunteer there. She could always use another. So anyhow, I volunteer with Karen that spring at JV, and you're in sports. It's not JV, varsity. Like, I mean, we're intertwined. So the varsity girls softball team ended up winning a conference that year. They were very good. I was playing in men's league softball. I remember telling like some of my buddies who were giving me shit about coaching girls. Like, I'll tell you what, I got a girl over here that can come play short for us right now in our men's league, and we won't.
And wouldn't skip a beat. Yeah, wouldn't skip a beat. Yep.
So it really opened my eyes to coaching females. Mm-hmm. And then late in the season, my athletic director came back to me and said, "We're going to be starting a girls volleyball program in the fall. You want to be the head coach?" And I was saying, "Well, listen, coach, I want to get involved in our soccer programs." Yeah. He's like, "I hear you." He's like, "But our soccer coach isn't going anywhere." And so, I'd be looking at a volunteer basis again. I'm trying to get you something that would be paid. And I'm like, "All right, well, I hear you." I'm like, I've played volleyball with my buddies. I've played beach. I've played some indoor intramural at Trenton State, but I haven't been coached to like know how to coach.
Right.
And so I gave him like 2 or 3 reasons like why not to. And eventually he came back with, "Do you want to be a full-time teacher next year?" And yeah. And he was like, "Well, if you're a varsity coach for me, it makes me a whole lot easier for me to go fight to make you a full-time teacher." Right. And I'm like, all right, my last thing, coach, is if there's somebody out there that's more qualified, I don't want to come in and do a disservice. Yeah. And he's like, "If you take the job, will you bust your ass to do a good job?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, I'll give you everything I got, coach. I don't want to do the kids. And he's like, "If you'll give me everything I got, then you're the best coach that we got right now." And I'm like, all right. So I'm like, all right, well, then I'm in. He's like, all right, great. He's like, "Now that you're our girls volleyball coach, you want to be our boys volleyball coach next spring?" And I started, like the first words out of my mind, I'm like, "Well, baseball is really kind of my," and he's like, "You just tried to volunteer at all 3 levels of baseball." He's like, "The baseball job's not open." Yeah. And I'm like, all right, you make a good point. All right, yeah, I'll be our varsity boys volleyball coach too. And that was kind of how it went down. So I didn't really come in with any kind of volleyball expertise by any stretch. And and I was a brand new coach. I wasn't getting a freshman team or a JV. I was getting not only a varsity team, I was getting a whole program, new start from scratch program. Yeah. Run with it. And in fact, the first couple of years of each, I did not have a JV coach. So we didn't have a freshman team, but we had JV and varsity, and I was our only coach for the girls in the fall and our only coach for the boys in the spring, probably the first five years of both programs.
That's crazy. I would have never guessed that you didn't play.
Right.
That's crazy.
I was kind of a jack of all trades, athleticism wise, but not a master of any. Like not good enough to go play college anything, but I was athletic enough that and enough pride that I was decent at a fair amount of sports.
Yeah. Well, and I can just remember, and you touched on it, like just asking questions, because volleyball, I feel like if you're not playing it at a decent level, you're just 3 in the front, 3 in the back. If you rotate, it's just like one big circle, which in theory is just volleyball. But when you were like coaching, and I mean, there were like formations of, hey, how we would line up and where you need to be. And when you're in this position, these are the 2 people or 3 people that you need to keep in mind, right? Like that was just a whole nother level of the game to me.
So, once I got hired, I got my hands on, any kind of information I could get. But I mean, you're still just kind of reading it in a book. You're not actually out there implementing it. And
Right.
went and talked with like the local college coaches, so the rowing coach and the Stockton coach. And then anyhow, early in that first season, Eastern High School runs a tournament. And so we had practice on a Saturday. We had practice Saturday morning. As soon as we got done practice, I got in the car and drove over just to go watch other high school teams.
Yeah.
And I remember watching Cherry Hill West and their coach, Scott Sweeten. And they were doing things in their serve receive. I mean, he was, within the rules, he was manipulating to get his best players to where they would get the most contacts. And then I remember just sitting in the stands thinking, I got to start thinking differently. Like, I got to start thinking outside of what I just read in the book and what this guy is looking for every possible advantage he can get to maximize his best players.
Yeah.
I got to start thinking this way. And I mean, that was, to me, Sweeten had an impact on me that day.
Right.
Just by he wasn't running out a cookie cutter thing, what everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
He was, using the rules, and it's to me, it's really one of the least complicated sports to coach once you kind of get it. But if you don't know the rules, just like anything else, it can be complicated. I kind of knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I watched another coach and started thinking, man, if we want to be good, I got to start
outside the box.
Right. What more can I do to make my team better?
Right.
No Stress Midwest has partnered with mobile app DNA Soccer Lab to bring not only our expertise in training for field players to video, but also offering keeper training, sports performance work, strength and conditioning, player development, and mental performance videos to all of our athletes wanting to take their training to the next level. We even have personal development plans that we can create for those trainees. Visit more on our website at nostressmidwest.com/DNA Soccer Lab to read more.
Right. Well, and it was like, I mean, even simple stuff like I can remember if I was the backside, right, and I was actually on the front right, and I would be hidden behind the setter, right? So if that first pass came to me, it was always going to the setter, and they would hit it to the next, like I would be in the next hands. And like, just like, I remember, like, I was like, why am I hiding here? And I remember it was like a player was like, dude, because you can't pass. Where else are you going to go?
Right.
And I was just like, well, in that regard, that makes sense.
The third ball. I don't want you touching the first. Like,
right, exactly. And then it was, even when I moved to Kansas City and I started playing in men's leagues and co-ed leagues, and just being able to, I moved into a middle hitter position, which I never thought I would play, but I understood kind of like what you would tell Wolfie every time, hey, recycle, run quick, just those things where I was like, man, Shep is still like, I still hear him in my ear. Or if I hit it out of bounds, like, I was like, oh man, imagine being 6'4" and can't hit it in bounds. Like those little things where I'm just like, dang, but as I say, I really appreciate that, because now as a coach, when I would jump in and when I do jump in and play, especially at the high school level, I'm like talking trash to them. And I'm like, man, imagine being 17 and you can't outrun a 30-year-old, man, I remember when I had problems, right? Like just the little banter that I love.
And that's, that's where, I guess more as an older coach now, and, as we get to, what was, 2016 and what was 2020 and now 2022, and you got to watch it. As long as you're developing a banter where the kids know that you're not insulting them, right? Then, to me, you're strengthening a relationship, and
100%.
And the kid, also wants to then give a little bit more to prove, I can keep up with the
right.
So there's so much concern, and every now and then I'll get a random kid that didn't take it the way it was intended, because again, I need this kid. In the possible women. There's no way that I'm trying to demean them, and every now and then I'll get a kid though that didn't, and then I'll get a parent that contacts me, and then hey, again,
take it.
I'm not trying to put your kid down. I don't want to lose your kid. Like I'm just trying to. So this is what I know. This
develop
bands. There's a little bit of jockeying. There's a little bit of trash talking.
Yep. No, I loved it, man. And it was like I would see you and Coop, right? It was the assistant when I was there, and you two would just be like having these little quiet conversations, and then just be a little laugh. And I'm like, man, I know they're saying something about us, but I was like, But like I said, it was one of those things where, and shoot, I think we definitely did, won the conference that year. And then with the boys team, I won it that year. And just being in like two conference winning teams and like being a part of like two coaches, and Geyer was helping on the JV team at the time, I think. And it
Yes.
was just like I feel like that was such a good year for me developing as like a human being.
Right.
Sure, like as a player and athletically, yeah, but like I wasn't playing volleyball in college. But it was like the stuff that I learned from that I could carry off the field that I felt had such like a long lasting impact.
Oh, that's again, we talked about the player likes to get a compliment. That's a compliment to a coach that you like to hear.
Yeah. So okay, man, you've had a quite a coaching tree. You've had coaches under you. You've worked for other coaches. Some of the people's names you were saying when you first started working there, like were coaches when I was there. Dillmore, um, Hunt, Powell was my social studies teacher as well. Turcasio, Geyer was talking about the other day. So it's cool to see like that Williamstown coaching circle and to know that you all are like all in that same circle. I feel like that helps a lot. But yeah, so what advice would you give, or do you wish you would have received when you were starting off as a coach? So what advice do you wish you would have received, and then flip it, what advice would you give a young coach maybe that just became a teacher looking to get into coaching, but like you said, their main sports are taken up?
Right.
Or is it the same advice for both situations?
Yeah. It's so I don't know. I mean, maybe it was kind of maybe because we were kind of successful fairly on. There wasn't a whole lot of advice that I didn't get that I kind of wish that I had. One piece that again, so three huge influences on me doing what I'm doing. One, it was my dad, who was a teacher and was also like my town league baseball coach. Like he was the first guy that coached me and stuff.
Yeah.
Chris Sheppard was a phys ed teacher who, when I finally started mentally coming to grips with the fact that I want to be a phys ed teacher, it was Chris Sheppard who I always kind of referenced in my mind. Like, here was a guy who was incredibly intelligent and made just phys ed class so much fun.
Yeah.
And then like I said, and then Bill Hunt, phys ed class wise, gym class, made it fun. But as a coach, I feel like if you invent a sport right this minute, Billy Hunt will be one of the best coaches of that particular sport. Like he relayed information so well to his players and built those relationships. And but one piece of advice that he kind of gave me, and our girls team kind of had success right away, and I was good at getting girls to want to play volleyball, and and I was good at getting girls to boys volleyball. A lot of our boys volleyball players, a fair amount, didn't play any other sport. It was all right. William said, "All right, boys volleyball, sweet. It's something new. I don't do anything. Let me try it."
Yep.
So a fair amount, and then a decent percentage did play other sports. The other sport was by far their number one sport. This was just something new.
Yeah.
And it would drive me insane when we weren't as good as what I thought we could be. And Hunt's advice to me was, Shep, you're the coach for a reason. Like, you can't continue to expect them to care as much as you do. Like, do everything that you can, but you can't go home and continue to beat yourself up for the next 24 hours until the next day. 20 hours from now, when they disappoint you again, and you beat yourself up
and
for
then
another.
it just recycles.
What you have to understand is the reason that you came back and coach is because you loved it. You loved it, and it's like some of these kids are gonna, but not all of them are gonna, because they don't all just love it. So that was a piece of it that I didn't get until a little later on, a few years in, and it didn't take away any of my passion, didn't take away any of my fire, but it did, help me at times get through some rough times.
Right.
Advice that I would give is, so Tom Sheridan, who You went to school with Tommy.
Tom's a year older than me. He was 06, I think.
Right. So he just got hired as our boys basketball coach. And while he was, interviewing Tom had been an assistant to the previous coach. So while Tom was interviewing, there were some other big name basketball people in the South Jersey area that was supposedly applying for the job. And even though Tom had gone to Williamstown and Tom had been on the staff, he was afraid that he wasn't going to get the job. And my advice to him at that time, I'm like, Tom, listen, if I'm the AD, I'm not necessarily looking for the best basketball coach in South. I'm looking for the best basketball coach for Williamstown High.
Yeah, the right coach for us. Yep.
I think that you're the best guy for Williamstown High. But I said, here's my one piece of advice is if you want to be good, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of effort. So if I am the AD, I don't want another basketball coach that's going to tell me in 3 or 4 years. And this next part is going to come from a guy who doesn't have kids. But I don't want to, as the AD here in 3 or 4 years, I'm stepping down because my kids are starting to get a little older. I don't want to miss their middle school games. And I'm like, and I know that's kind of a selfish thing to say. I'm like, but again, the old school guy in me, unfortunately, there were fathers of coaches there were coaches who were fathers that were missing some of their kids' stuff to be completely invested in this coaching thing. So, I mean, I see plenty of coaches that have a balance, that do a great job with the balance. Like I said, I don't have any kids, so I can kind of invest ridiculous amounts of time.
Right.
But if you want to be good, you can't just expect, well, I've got good players this year, we should be good.
You should be, yeah.
You got to be invested and you got to make them better. And if you don't have good players, we don't really have good players, we're not going to be very good this year. You might not win a state championship,
but you still got to go out and compete.
Yeah, if you put in the effort, those kids will respond, and you'll at least work to get the max out of them.
Right.
Don't just look at your lot and accept your lot, and this is what we are this year.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I always knew in Morristown volleyball, I knew when they had a good team. I knew when they had a good team because their coach contacted me and wanted to play that year.
Right.
And then when they weren't that good, I would contact, hey, Scott, do you want to put together? There was always an excuse.
Yeah.
But then 3 years from now, they had another good team. Hey, Shep, you guys want to play? No, I'll go play anybody, anywhere, anytime. But that also was sending a message to your kids. Oh, Williamstown's on the schedule this year. Williamstown's not on the schedule this year.
Right. Why?
We played them last year when we were really good. How come we're not playing this year? So, you can't just say, hey, get out there. And that's why I respect Eastern High School, and I respect Southern. They'll play anybody, anytime, every year. And Southern's continued to stay at a high level. Eastern at times has dropped, but Eastern still plays the same schedule. So,
No Stress Midwest has partnered with Techball to become the Midwest host site for Techball official league play and tournaments. On Thursdays from 8 to 10 p.m. and Sundays from 3 to 5 p.m., No Stress Midwest will be hosting Techball pickup play at the soccer lot. Swing by and see what all the fun's about. To stay up to date on all information regarding Techball through No Stress Midwest, visit our website at www.nostressmidwest.com/techball. You'll be able to see all of the upcoming events we have, such as league play, tournaments, and any changes to pick up.
Well, and it was being with volleyball and hearing about these teams, right? And soccer, Southern wasn't the team that I ever heard of. And then we go and play them in men's volleyball. I think it was in a tournament that my senior year, and they were doing things I was just like, how come none of us, Wolfie, how come you can't do that? What?
You were playing a different sport than us.
Yeah,
right?
And we had players like Wolf, we had Dan Cora, maybe one or two other volleyball specific people. And I'm just like, man, they're so much better than us. And then I'm looking at the guy across from me who's hitting it wherever he wants to put it. And then, with either hand, I'm just like, wow. But the thing was, every game was competitive. I never felt like we would, it was 25-0. You know, like it was always, hey, I'm going to try. This guy might, friggin' put it somewhere, but I'm going to give it, I'm going to keep going because I knew you were so invested in it. And being a coach and seeing when you want it more than your players is one of the most frustrating things I feel like you can experience. So I could only imagine what you were going through, right? I mean, all the years you've been coaching, and not just my year, but through all the years it happened.
The biggest difference with, and now, it's also a plus for the biggest difference with our guys team is our top level, and our top group of guys could compete with those teams. Mm-hmm. They were, a little bit better, but we were kind of the next day, and we could play. Their depth was so every day at practice. Yeah, they were going against a stud all the. Yeah. Our depth wasn't there, so what we were going against at practice every day, and that's where another thing as a coach, you try and impress upon your scout side, your B group, your JV group. Yeah, they're important. How important they are in pushing that kid in front of them, and hey, once you start to pass them, believe me, sports are what have you done for me lately? I'm going to start getting you more time. But Southern and those top tier teams had such amount of depth, and what I have going on with girls volleyball, our practice are insane right now. We'll start finally getting to scrimmage somebody next week, and then we'll start playing games, and I'll get a chance to see how good. But I mean, right now I've been around it long enough that right now it looks really good, and I'm not so sure that the best team we see all year is the group on the other side of the court right now. So iron sharpens awesome. Iron, and if I go back to our boys just didn't have enough depth. So our top, I feel like if we had a little more depth, then
it's a lot different.
In some of those matches here, and we're not winning them all. We're getting beat some, but rather than being competitive and hanging around and losing 25-22, we're finding a way to
winning.
Get to the other side of something.
Well, and I feel like we talked about it. For us, at least when I was there, it wasn't the main sport for most people. Where I feel like on your girls' side, you had, and granted, like Rachel Mature, I think softball is her main sport, but she was, I mean, just a freak athlete. Then you had Nina, right? And I feel like on the women's side, you had a lot more players where volleyball was their main sport.
100%.
The men's side, where it was soccer, mostly basketball, right? We had like Chamar, Jamal, just athlete, Justin Abraham, Cheney, like just athletes that you were just like, hey, you throw a ball in there, tell us how to score. Okay. That's how we'll do it.
Trying to teach them, we talk about it, some of those guys, because they didn't play a lot of volleyball, they were basically just trained SEALs. Like we were trying to teach them how to be good at their one position. Developing their entire skill set was pointless because they weren't going to work on it a whole lot. So we had a 2-month window. So let's just train you how to do this skill. Yeah. And then we're going to throw you to fish, And so, but my girls team, right? Yeah, I mean, a lot of them play volleyball year round, and we've got a kid that's a middle and a kid that's a right side and a kid that's a setter. But I've got a bunch of kids right now that can perform the skills of a middle. I got a bunch of kids that can perform the skills of a setter, of an outside hitter. Yeah, my best one is going to be my setter. My best one is going to be my middle. But I've got a bunch of kids that can do a bunch of things,
which is good. Right. So we're wrapping up on time here. If you can, in 30 seconds, give me 2 of your top coaching moments.
Well, listen, any of the state championships, it's easy to say. I mean, you win that final game. You put so much blood, sweat, and tears and passion into getting that game. But then I don't is any particular game jump off? A few times that we've won where we were kind of underdogs, where somebody had been hurt and like one of our better players was hurt, and yet we found a way to win without that kid in a big game. And then the other big moment for me, I can just remember some of our younger kids, and sometimes even in a JV game, where just some things start to happen and you see it start to click. I mean, that as a coach is a big deal. Like when you see a kid now all of a sudden gets their timing, and every now and then they used to crank one, but then their next 8 swings, and now all of a sudden they've strung together 5, 6 really good swings, and you see it now. It's no longer just a fluke. Now they see how to do it. They understand how to. Man, when they have that eureka click. Moment, that light bulb. Yep. Man, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now. It's like
same here, man.
Like you feel great for that kid. And then in turn, hey, this is going to help me.
Yep.
This is awesome.
Yep.
So
No.
there's, the state champ games, like I said, they stick out, but any other individual particular game, not necessarily, but those moments along the way are
awesome. All right, well, Shep, man, we're getting to the end of our time here, right?
Man.
I feel like, and it was just like with Geyer, I feel like we could go on for another hour or so.
This doesn't feel like it's been 40 minutes. Right?
No, not at all. But Shep, I wanted to thank you, man, for being on. And as I told Geyer, I'm going to do another season for sure. I don't know which one I'll do to get you two both back on. But we're going to definitely find a way to get you two on, because I feel like you two have such a wealth of knowledge. And, it could be me being biased and having you both as coaches. But I just felt like I have learned so much from you two that has kind of put me in this position and wanting to be able to, hopefully coach at a level where you can come to a game. So we'll see how that goes in due time.
Yeah, man. I feel like, I got invited to come on as a coach, and I feel like for 40 minutes, we just kind of
had a convo.
Some coaching talk got mixed in, but we just kind of relived it. But that's also part of coaching. Like I said, building those relationships, enjoying those kids that gave you so much. And I know Geyer and I have talked, and what you're doing is something that we are, talk about. You asked me, hey, were there a couple games that and I talked about, watching a kid play. What you're doing is something that we're both tremendously proud of. And
have you heard the big news? No Stress Midwest has found a new home at the soccer lot located downtown Kansas City. Swing by and check out our new training facility, as well as our classroom. We'll be hosting our tutoring sessions. Be sure to also check out our player lounge, which includes a TV, FIFA, ping pong, and a tech ball table for all of the needs of our trainees.
Doing, and and Bill Hunt will never really take credit for any of the success that I've had in my coaching career, and Geyer and I won't as well. You got to go out and make your own way, but we're just incredibly proud to have been a piece, and any inspiration that we've had towards you. Like I said, I would love to think that I'm having an inspiration on some people the way Hunt and Iannacone and my own father inspired me. That's something that as a coach that you just love to see. So like I said, you're out making your own way, but we're incredibly proud of what you're doing. And there's going to be a guy in a few years that you're going to be talking to that was motivated and inspired by Coach Brian Turner, and they want to be the next Brian Turner. So you love to see it in the athletic field, because man, there's plenty of stuff that'll kick you out of the coaching world. There's plenty of stuff that at the end of the day, you're like, man, why am I still doing this? So there's plenty of reason to get out. So it's great to see when you got some guys in there that are paying it forward and getting some other people involved in it.
Yeah, well, and I can say I got in it, right? I mean, for a lot of reasons, but as I've said, you and Geyer were two big reasons. I'm like, all right, these are some like cool coaches out here. It's not just like some schmuck that's just telling you what to do, or some, person that's collecting a check. You can tell the coaches that are like that, and you can tell the coaches that are like, yo, when I leave here, the first thing that my brain goes to is, how do I digest what just happened? How do I figure out, how do we prevent this from happening or continue the success the next day? It's a all year, all day. I know you're sleeping, you're thinking about it. You wake up, you're thinking about it. It's a grind.
My first year after, Fenimore tabbed me and I was the coach, and that first season we were having like summer open gym stuff, and anyhow we got done an open gym at like a morning session, and I was going down to the shore afterwards. And I took the expressway, and I was planning on going to like Ocean City or Margate, and not that everybody watching this would know, but anyhow, next thing I kind of noticed was I was in Atlantic City, which means I went about 15 exits past where I was supposed to get off. And the reason was because my mind was just what we just did and what we need to do better.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, I
Crap.
mean, right.
Yep.
So, but
That's how it goes.
and you and I talked before we got going, some crap that went on for me today where we're getting booted out of our gym. Come tomorrow, I had to move. I got no notice whatsoever. I had to move all my equipment by myself.
Yeah.
I basically had to make sure that, but anyhow, there becomes plenty of reasons where as I'm moving this shit on, I'm like, when's enough?
Yeah.
But it's so rewarding, and I'm moving all my stuff at the drop of a hat, because what I could easily do is just cancel practice tomorrow.
Yep.
I'm moving all my stuff from one building to another, taking several trips, because I don't want to let these kids down, because I know that these kids give me so much. Like they are busting their butt for me and our program. That, you know what? Yeah, it sucks, because now here I am here for another 2 hours after we just had
doing
a half-hour practice, and I can't wait to get home.
Yep.
But I'm not going to let these kids down. And so it is extremely rewarding. So
no,
that's
awesome.
to see somebody else getting into it and seeing that as well, and wanting to keep extending it. So
yeah. Well, I had Jim Curtin on as a guest, and when I was out there in Philly, I was kind of telling you about the experience there, and that organization has been awesome, right? And maybe it is something where I move back to the East Coast, not saying it's going to be explicitly with the union or anything like that, but wanting to be able to like have you and Geyer invite you out to a game or something. Like, to me, that's like, or having like watching my mom, like having my mom watching me coach or something. Those are like the things where I'm like, that would be awesome. So one day I'll send you, when you get the ticket, when I ask for your address, you'll know what's up, Shep.
All right. I'll be anxiously awaiting it.
Yeah. So I also want to tell you, I still have my conference championship jacket, the only like Nike windbreaker that I have, probably the only windbreaker, and it's that.
Nice.
So I still have that around. It's an extra large. I don't wear an extra large now. So like, I know in high school, I had no business wearing an extra large, but there I was.
Looking at 2007 gear.
Yeah, that was what a time. So, well, hey, Shep, I want to thank you for being a guest. Like I said, I feel like we could go on for another 40 minutes plus and keep going.
Easy.
Just because a lot of this stuff is, it's like a conversation, and I feel like when you have two coaches that are like, wired, kind of the same way, and that are in it for the right reasons, regardless of the sport. You could throw in Coach Hunt here, and we could all be talking about whatever it is, but it all making sense to
like
each
I said,
other.
That's how I felt about Billy. Forget about that he was my baseball coach. Meant a sport, and this guy would just be would be great at coaching it.
He'd be the coach. Yeah.
I was not a volleyball guy, and I've been successful because I showed kids that I care. And when you show kids that you care, man, they'll reciprocate.
They'll do a lot.
So
No,
it'll carry a ways.
I agree. Well, I want to thank you again. It's been a great pleasure, I'll say, to have you on like in an official role. Calling you coach, I think, is something that probably won't go away. Or Shep, so it's always going to be one of the two. To our No Stress Midwest listeners, I want to thank you for listening to another episode. We had Coach Chris Sheppard on as a guest, volleyball coach in Williamstown High School, 5-time state champion, 1-time tournament champion, 500 plus wins, but just like one of the most competitive, but one of the coolest coaches I've had. So I want to thank you all for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode of the No Stress Midwest podcast. Cheers.
See you, Brian. Thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate it.